Welcome to Pod AI Cast _official.
It's great to be back.
We are here for part 2 of our deep dive series, and we're focusing entirely on achieving a truly authentic state of charisma. We're not talking about faking it. We're talking about building it from the inside out.
Exactly.
So if you were with us for part 1 and you found those foundational pillars useful, you should probably subscribe right now. Seriously, make sure you don't miss a single piece of this because today the theory stops.
And the work begins.
The practical, transformative work.
That really is the key distinction for today. Just to recap very, very briefly for everyone. In part 1, we established that charisma is built on 3 pillars. They're non-negotiable.
Presence, power, and warmth.
Presence, power, and warmth. And the critical point was that you have to access these internally first. You just can't slap on some external polish if the internal architecture is shaky. It just doesn't work.
It reads as fake.
Immediately.
Yeah.
So today's mission is all about moving from that philosophical understanding to the actual blueprint. We are going to unpack the techniques that fundamentally change your internal state. We'll be focusing intensely on cultivating genuine goodwill and self-compassion.
Okay.
Then we're going to get into the science of the body-mind connection, which is just fascinating. We'll explore how physical warm-ups can literally switch on your charisma in an instant.
And
Finally, we map out the 4 distinct styles of charisma: focus, visionary, kindness, and authority. The idea is to give you a personalized path, a toolkit so precise you can actually select the right charismatic state for any given moment.
Okay, let's get into it. The inner game. You mentioned warmth. Now, we know from our last discussion that anxiety, even small irritations, they just sabotage your body language.
Instantly.
You could be the smartest person in the room, but if you're still mentally stuck in that traffic jam from an hour ago, you just can't project genuine warmth, can you?
You can't. Your body is a broadcast station for your internal state, regardless of the words coming out of your mouth. So before you can project warmth, you have to achieve a state of presence. You have to diffuse that internal noise.
Right. And we touched on some simple techniques last time. I remember the one about just scanning the room for 3 things you find pleasing.
Exactly. It's so simple, it almost sounds trivial, but it works. It could be the quality of the light, the color of someone's jacket, or even just appreciating the fact that the table you're sitting at is solid.
It breaks the cycle.
It breaks the negative thought cycle. These small, immediate acts of observation and gratitude stop a minor emotional disruption from spiraling into a full-blown bad mood that ruins your presence.
We also talked about that counterintuitive practice of writing your life down from a third-person perspective. Not, I did this, but describing a character.
And that externalizing technique is surprisingly powerful. When you write about your work, your relationships, your day, as if you're watching a character in a book, you gain psychological distance.
You're no longer judging it from the inside.
You're not. And it allows you to focus solely on the objective, positive aspects of that character's life. The successes, the reliable friends, the simple fact that they completed their tasks.
Because when you just think about it, the internal critic jumps in.
Always. The critic says, yeah, but you could have done it better. Writing it down from the outside often helps you access a deep emotional realization about the good things in your life that you're overlooking in the daily grind. It's a really powerful tool for shifting your focus toward gratitude.
But the sources, they introduce an exercise that takes this gratitude concept to an extreme. It sounds intense, frightening even. The mortality visualization.
The funeral technique.
Yes, tell me about this.
This is one of the most intense, but also one of the most profoundly impactful exercises that you'll find in high-level leadership or personal development seminars. It is a visualization that forces you, right now, to confront your own mortality.
How does that work, specifically?
The instructions are very precise. You imagine your own funeral. You set the whole scene, the location, the weather, the music playing, and most importantly, you visualize who is there.
That seems profoundly destabilizing. I mean, what's the risk that this just ramps up anxiety and fear instead of cultivating warmth?
That's a very fair question. And look, it is designed to be destabilizing at first. But the whole point is to break through the emotional chaos we live in every single day.
The small stuff.
The small, medium, and large anxieties. You break through that to reach a state of profound, absolute gratitude for just being alive right now, in this moment. You're not focusing on the mechanics of death. You're focusing on the legacy of your life.
Okay, so you visualize people at the funeral. What happens then?
The visualization asks you to imagine 4 people speaking. someone from your immediate family, a close friend, a work colleague, and then someone whose life you touched just in passing.
And what are they saying?
That's the core of it. What are they really saying about you? What do they admire? And crucially, what regrets might you have as you listen? The things you didn't do, the words you didn't say.
So it's using the finality of it all to force an immediate reprioritization of what actually matters.
Exactly. The intense emotion this exercise creates clarifies your core values in an instant. It just demolishes the daily emotional clutter, and it puts you in a state of intense appreciation for your own existence. The relief that you're still alive, that you still have time to make those changes. Yeah. That's a powerful, instant source of warmth. It's deeper than almost any other technique.
That definitely sets the stage. Okay, let's move to the second step in projecting that warmth, the concept of goodwill. How do we define that in the context of charisma?
Goodwill is the practical method. It's how you create warmth and, frankly, instant attraction in others. It's the conscious, sincere act of wishing someone well.
So it's an act of thought.
It's an active thought. And when you genuinely focus on that sincerity, people automatically perceive you as radiating warmth. It's what people often mistake for just natural charisma, that feeling that the other person is genuinely happy that you are there.
And this isn't just a philosophical thing. There's a biological trigger here.
Oh, absolutely. The moment you genuinely focus goodwill toward another person, your system gets a little cocktail of oxytocin and serotonin.
Our feel-good chemicals.
The critical feel-good chemical. So it instantly elevates your own mood. You feel better, you feel more centered. But I think this psychological shift is even more potent.
How so?
Well, think about a typical interaction. Your objective might be, I have to impress this person, or I need to get this outcome.
Right, there's pressure.
A lot of pressure. But when your objective shifts to simply, I am here to spread goodwill, all that performance anxiety just, it evaporates. You're no longer fighting for an external result. You're just giving. And that dramatically reduces your own anxiety and boosts your confidence because suddenly the interaction isn't about you anymore.
Okay, so let's make this practical. I've got a colleague, or maybe a family member who I find really difficult, someone who just pushes my buttons. How do I generate goodwill toward them in the moment?
The exercise is straightforward, but it does demand a little bit of effort. You have to find 3 things, just 3, that you genuinely like or approve of about that person.
Even if they're tiny things.
Especially if they're tiny things. It could be, his shoes are always shiny, or she isn't impressively punctual. It might be, I actually appreciate the subtle pattern on their tie, or they seem genuinely dedicated to their kids.
So you're forcing your brain to hunt for the positive.
You are. And you cannot simultaneously hunt for positives while feeling strong irritation. It's a mental state change. And that shift immediately alters your body language, which signals warmth.
That's a fantastic reframing tool. Now, there's another technique in the sources that sounds a little bit out there. Dr. Berdue's invisible winged angels technique.
Ah, yes, the invisible winged angels. It does sound whimsical, doesn't it? But it is pure practical neuroscience.
Okay, sell me on it.
So neuroscientist Dr. Privihini Bradue shared this. And it basically requires you to suspend your disbelief for a moment. The instruction is to treat everyone you encounter, even for a second, like the driver who cuts you off in traffic, as an invisible winged angel.
An angel. So I have to imagine them with wings and a halo.
Not literally the wings, no. But you have to imbue them with this inherent purity and goodness. The idea is that if, even for a split second, you view someone as fundamentally good or benevolent, your hardwired, cynical, emotional reaction to them it softens. You're essentially hacking your own amygdala.
Your threat detection system.
Precisely. And when executives, these are driven, sometimes aggressive people, when they tried this, they found it was profoundly effective. Their whole body language changed. Shoulders relaxed. Facial muscles softened. Their presence increased because they were suddenly more accessible. The internal command is simple. You can approach every human being with love. It can create this sense of immediate intimacy.
That brings us to a really crucial point, though. What happens when goodwill just isn't enough? You try to find 3 good things. You try the angel technique, but you're still dealing with a genuinely difficult, frustrating person.
That's when you have to go deeper. You have to graduate to the next level. This is where we need to clearly distinguish between 3 concepts that people often use interchangeably: goodwill, empathy, and compassion.
Okay, let's break them down.
Goodwill, as we said, is wishing someone well, without necessarily feeling what they feel. Empathy is understanding what another person is feeling. You grasp their distress, maybe because you've been through something similar.
You can relate.
You can relate. Compassion, then, is goodwill plus empathy. You understand their suffering, and you genuinely wish them well. You are moved to care. The researcher Paul Gilbert actually breaks this down into a three-step process.
Which is?
First, empathy. You sense their distress. Second, sympathy. You are emotionally moved by that distress. And third, compassion, the desire that results from that, the desire to actually care for them.
This raises a big question about authenticity, though. If I don't naturally feel compassion for my difficult colleague, is choosing to be compassionate just another form of faking it?
No, and you absolutely can choose it. This is a key insight from neuroscientist Rick Hansen. He argues that humans are basically hardwired for compassion. That drive is deeper and more powerful than our cognitive ability. You can, through conscious thought and practice, force yourself to act compassionately, even if the warm, fuzzy feelings aren't there yet.
So the act comes first.
The act precedes the feeling, and your genuine desire to focus on their well-being is enough to positively shift your body language and project real, authentic care.
Let's talk about the formal compassion practice outlined in the sources. What's the ultimate purpose of doing this rigorous three-step visualization?
It has a few purposes. First, it's energizing. Focusing positive care outward gives you energy. Second, and maybe more importantly for leaders, it balances your power. As you become more successful, the risk of arrogance and cynicism is very real. Compassion is the antidote. It protects you from that.
Okay, walk me through the steps. How do I generate compassion for that person who drives me crazy?
We approach it by seeking to understand. So step one, imagine their past. Visualize where they were born, their family, their childhood experiences. You force yourself to consider the core thought. If I had their exact life experiences, I might behave exactly like they do today.
It breaks down judgment.
It completely breaks down the wall of judgment. It helps you realize that everyone has a complex story. Then step two, imagine they're present. This is where you try to literally step into their skin, see the world through their eyes right now, feel their current stress, their fears, their anxieties. You're attempting genuine, focused empathy.
And the final step goes back to that powerful tool we discussed earlier.
It does. Step three, imagine their last day. Just like the gratitude exercise, you apply the mortality visualization to them. You imagine their funeral. Who's there? What are people saying? What regrets might they have carried? This helps you access a level of real, fundamental human care. It reminds you that no matter how difficult they are today, they are a finite resource, just like you. Their life has importance.
It's really powerful how consistently that theme of mortality is used to cut through the noise of the moment.
It has to be. Because surface friction is so easy to get caught up in, and we know this stuff works. It's not just self-help theory. Tom Shiro at Deloitte emphasized that empathy is one of their core criteria for assessing leadership potential. Angel Martinez, the CEO of Decker, said the same thing. Without empathy, you simply cannot be an effective leader. This is the access point.
We've spent a lot of time talking about directing warmth and care outward. Now let's pivot to what the sources suggest is maybe the single most challenging but also the most transformative application of compassion.
Directing it inward.
Yeah.
Self-compassion.
Exactly.
This is often the biggest bottleneck, especially for high-achieving people. We saw this perfectly in the case of Helen. She was hyper-competent, incredibly organized, sharp. She had extreme power and presence, but nobody would call her charismatic.
Why not?
People respected her, but they didn't feel any connection to her, no warmth. And when she was pressed on it, she admitted the root cause. Her words were, "I don't even like myself."
Wow.
Her internal critic was so loud, so dominant, that it transmitted coldness and judgment to everyone around her. For Helen, the path to authentic charisma had to start by dismantling that self-critic.
This forces us to really clearly differentiate between three concepts people mix up all the time: confidence, self-esteem, and self-compassion. Let's define those.
Okay. Confidence is purely a belief in your ability to do or learn a specific task. I am confident I can write this report. Simple. Self-esteem, on the other hand, is a conditional evaluation of yourself. It's based on social comparison.
Am I better than my rival?
Did I meet this external standard? It's fundamentally a roller coaster. You can have high confidence in your skills, but terrible self-esteem if you compare your life to someone else's on social media.
And self-compassion.
Self-compassion is unconditional. It's self-acceptance, especially when you fail or during difficult times. It is not conditional on your performance.
And the research suggests we should focus on confidence and self-compassion and maybe not worry so much about chasing self-esteem.
Absolutely. Because self-esteem is rooted in comparison, it's closely linked to narcissism. If my self-worth depends on being better than you, I'm in a constant state of externalizing my own identity. Self-compassion is the true antidote to both narcissism and that harsh internal critic.
How does that play out in terms of resilience?
People with high self-compassion are remarkably resilient. They're more likely to take personal responsibility when things go wrong and less likely to deny their mistakes. They just forgive themselves, learn from it, and move on.
Let's draw a line between self-compassion and self-pity. To an outsider, dwelling on a failure might look like the same thing.
It's all about the internal narrative. Self-pity focuses on victimhood. Why did this happen to me? It's so unfair. That just breeds bitterness and alienation. Self-compassion accepts that misfortune is part of the universal human experience. It allows you to forgive yourself when you inevitably fall short. That's the mechanism that silences the critic that destroys charisma.
And that silencing can have an immediate physical effect. Tell us that story again about Brian the banker.
Brian was a classic case. Highly successful, driven, but terribly self-critical. He was in a constant mental war with himself. When I guided him through a very simple self-compassion exercise, he had this profound, immediate reaction. He let out a sharp breath and said his chest opened up.
The tension just released.
The physical armor he was carrying against his own self-judgment, it just dissolved. He said he felt instantly lighter, more centered, and he even used the phrase he felt more like an alpha wolf, able to occupy more physical space. It's a perfect illustration that when you are kind to yourself, your body language automatically signals confidence, warmth, and accessibility.
Okay, that feeling of relief is the goal. So let's get into the structured technique for actually cultivating it. The metta practice.
Metta, or loving-kindness meditation, is a centuries-old Buddhist tradition. It's most famously exemplified by the Dalai Lama, whose deep, resonant charisma is largely attributed to his consistent use of these compassion practices.
So what is it at its core?
It's a conscious decision toward universal kindness for all beings, including yourself. It's free from selfish attachment, and its goal is to resolve internal anger and despair.
Is there any measurable science behind this ancient spiritual practice?
Oh, absolutely. When neuroscientists put long-term metta practitioners into MRI scanners, they observed significant, measurable changes in their brains.
Like what?
They exhibited notably stronger brain waves in the gamma frequency range. They showed a much faster recovery time from acute stress. And they saw enduring progress in the brain's frontal cortex, what's often called the joy center. You are literally retraining your brain's default operating system to favor positivity and resilience.
Kristen Neff, who's a leading researcher here, she outlines a 3-stage process for self-compassion based on this.
She does. Stage 1 is mindfulness of suffering. You have to fully acknowledge and accept that you're having a hard time without judging it. Stage 2 is common humanity.
The idea that you're not alone in this.
Exactly. Remember that everyone goes through hard times. Your suffering doesn't make you a failure. It makes you part of the human collective. It directly combats the isolation that the internal critic loves to impose.
And stage 3?
Stage 3 is self-kindness. You respond to your suffering not with more criticism, but with kindness, as you would to a dear friend who is struggling. You'd offer comfort and support. You have to learn to treat yourself the same way.
Let's really dedicate some time to the meta visualization itself. This is a complex practice, and I think we should walk through the steps so people can try this for themselves.
Okay. The whole point of this practice is to fundamentally reprogram that internal monologue. Thus, you start by finding a quiet space. You relax. You take several deep, intentional breaths. Visualize clean, comforting air washing through your body. And as you exhale, visualize all your worries and tensions just leaving with the air.
So you're setting a calm baseline. What's next?
Next, you establish your benevolent focus. You focus intensely on a benevolent entity. This could be a historical figure you admire, a beloved pet, a spiritual leader, even a childhood doll. Anyone or anything that embodies unconditional affection and kindness for you.
Why is the choice of that entity so important?
Because you need an immediate visceral connection to the feeling of unconditional love. The entity has to represent safety and absolute acceptance. You're basically using that image as a psychological vehicle to transfer that feeling to yourself.
Okay, I have my benevolent entity in mind. What's step 3?
Step 3. You imagine their warmth and kindness radiating towards you. You feel these waves of pure acceptance just surrounding you, flowing over you, soaking into your skin and into your core.
And step 4 is the really difficult one for a lot of people.
It is. This is the hardest step for many high achievers. You see yourself through their eyes, and you imagine yourself being completely, utterly, and totally forgiven by your internal critic for all of your perceived failings, for every past mistake. This is the moment of liberation.
And the final step.
And 5th, you feel their complete acceptance.
Yeah.
You are accepted exactly as you are, flaws and all. The internal critic is finally silenced by this realization, which comes from that benevolent source. You are perfect right now in this stage of development.
That sounds like a really powerful emotional cleanse. When your clients go through that, what physical effects do they usually report?
The effects are remarkably consistent. The first thing is physical calm. People often report a significant burden literally feeling like it's lifting from their shoulders. And during that acceptance stage, many feel a very real increase in heat or a rush of warmth, especially in their chest. It's a literal feeling of self-warmth emerging.
What if someone tries this and they don't feel that huge emotional shift right away? Should they just give up on it?
Absolutely not. That's a great point. Even if you don't feel a profound instant change, meta has what we call a spillover effect. Just the consistent act of doing it recalibrates your emotional baseline. It increases your general presence and warmth throughout the rest of the day. As Christopher Germer said, a single moment of self-compassion can change your whole day. A lifetime of it can change your whole life. It's an investment. And speaking of investments, as we transition into this next section, focusing on how we execute this externally, I just want to take a moment to gently remind you to please subscribe to PodAIcast_official. By subscribing, you really do ensure you won't miss the upcoming sections on charismatic warm-ups and mastering that critical first impression.
Okay, so we've established the internal state, how the mind generates warmth and confidence. Now, let's flip the script, which seems to be a key scientific discovery in this field. We're talking about how changing your physical state can instantly trigger the emotion.
This is the principle of reverse engineering emotions. The connection between your body and your mind is so profound that if you forcefully adopt the physical posture of an emotion, your brain will often immediately generate the corresponding feeling, even if you felt the opposite just a second ago.
It's the ultimate fake it till you make it, but with real physiological results backing it up. The sources have a simple test to prove this link.
They do. Just try it. Attempt to feel genuine excitement, real joy, real energy while holding a deeply depressed posture. Shoulders slumped, head down, eyes on the floor.
We can't do it.
It's almost impossible to summon or maintain that positive feeling. Your body language just defeats the internal effort. Now, try the reverse. Try to feel miserable and depressed while you're literally jumping up and down, throwing your arms over your head, and forcing the widest smile you can.
The physical state wins every time.
Every time. It's nearly impossible to maintain negativity when your body is screaming peak excitement.
So let's say a listener needs to access charisma right now, maybe 5 minutes before a huge meeting. What are the specific power poses they can use for, say, dignity and confidence?
For dignity, you need to channel authority charisma. You need to occupy space and convey control. So you adopt the classic posture of military general. Stand tall, chest slightly out, shoulders back and down, and clasp your hands securely behind your back. This physically stops you from fidgeting, and it signals you're in complete control.
Button for energy and warmth.
For that, you need to activate your system. You have to use movement. The warm-up is to jump up and down lightly, throw your arms overhead, force the most absurdly wide smile you can, and look up at the ceiling. After just a few seconds of that, you stop and relax completely. This stimulates excitement, it gets your heart rate up, and it signals joy to your brain, which rapidly gives you access to warmth.
Now, I can hear some listeners thinking this sounds a bit like psychological trickery. How do we respond to the idea that this is just faking confidence?
Well, it might start as faking it, but the physiological effect is immediate and genuine. Research from Harvard and Columbia actually confirmed this. Adopting these confident body languages, standing tall, using expansive gestures, it instantly triggers a biochemical shift.
A real chemical change in the body.
A real chemical change. They found increases in testosterone, which is associated with confidence, and decreases in cortisol, the stress hormone. A hunched, skeptical posture produces the exact opposite response. You just have to initiate the loop. The posture influences your feelings, which then naturally influences your body language, which reinforces the feelings. It's a positive feedback cycle.
This is perfectly captured in that anecdote from the sources about the friend in Madrid, the Miss Piggy moment. Let's really break that story down.
It's a perfect example of this principle in action. So this friend was walking down the Gran Via in Madrid, and she was feeling awful. Exhausted, ugly, poorly dressed. She saw herself as this awkward, unkempt tourist.
She had internalized that negative identity.
Completely. And then she had this moment of clarity. She just decided to adopt the posture of a movie star or an aristocrat, the most confident person she could imagine. She physically stood up tall, pushed her shoulders back, held her chin high, and she slowed her pace.
And what was the immediate result?
The internal change came first. She said her clothes suddenly felt fashionable. The confidence from the pose instantly changed her perception of her own appearance. Then, people did start staring, but not with judgment, with admiration. And when she stopped to ask a man for directions, he responded with this awe and respect, saying, "It would be my honor."
She transformed her reality just by changing her posture.
In a single second, she went from self-conscious tourist to confident, glamorous figure, purely because the physical stance triggered the internal confidence response.
That's really compelling, but consistency requires practice. Otherwise, it's just a temporary trick. And this brings us to the idea of the willpower muscle.
Right. Practicing charisma has to become second nature. But we all face this biological constraint, which is that willpower is a limited, exhaustible resource. Behavioral scientists treat it just like a muscle. It gets tired with use.
So if you spend your morning just dealing with annoying problems or resisting the urge to check your phone, your willpower is depleted.
Exactly. And your ability to be charismatic later in the day suffers, even if you know all the techniques. Think of Robert, the executive in The Sources. He was impatient by nature. He spent all morning fighting his own irritation in a series of taxing, low-value meetings.
It was by noon.
By noon, when he had to meet with a major client, his charismatic ability was shot. He just didn't have the mental energy left to generate patience or warmth. His willpower was gone.
The solution, then, is to manage that willpower strategically.
You have to. You have to look your day and consciously decide which interactions are high value enough to spend your willpower on. If you can, delegate the low-value taxing stuff. If you have a critical client dinner at 7 p.m., your entire afternoon should be dedicated to conserving that willpower for the peak performance.
It sounds like training for a marathon. You need a slow, deliberate ramp-up.
That's the perfect analogy. You can't just jump from 0 to 100 charisma. You have to plan a deliberate warm-up period before any key event. We call it the charismatic warm-up checklist.
Okay, what's on the checklist?
First, you curate your schedule right before the event. Plan activities or meetings that will positively affect your mental state. If you know certain people or tasks drain you, avoid them in the hours leading up to the main event.
Protect your state.
Protect your state.
Yeah.
Second, be ruthless about your immediate environment. Interact only with people who make you feel genuinely good. Avoid the critics, even the ones who mean well. Your internal state is just too precious right before a performance. Third, and this is highly effective, you curate personalized music playlists for different emotional states. Confidence, compassion, calmness. Music affects your brain chemistry faster than almost anything else. I have clients with playlists literally titled Pre-Presentation Focus or Compassion Walk.
I love that final story about the client who used this to handle anxiety at a big social event.
It's the perfect illustration of proactive defense. This client typically felt intense anxiety in large group settings, just felt judged and uneasy. So instead of going straight from the office into the function, they planned a calm, positive dinner beforehand with a supportive old friend, then a quiet walk.
So they entered the room already in a positive state.
Exactly. They entered the room centered and feeling great. They had built up this protective emotional barrier. And people at the function kept complimenting them on how calm and present they seemed. They genuinely enjoyed it, which proved that the warm-up process can transform potential anxiety into real confidence and accessibility.
We've built the internal architecture for charisma. We've learned how to activate it on demand. Now, let's look at how it's actually expressed externally. Because charisma isn't a monolith, right? It comes in different flavors.
The differentiation is absolutely crucial for application. You need to know which tool to use and when. So we focus on the 4 most accessible and useful styles for daily life: focus, visionary, kindness, and authority.
And each one is just a different combination of the core elements.
That's it. A different emphasis on presence, power, and warmth.
Okay, let's start with the charisma of focus.
The charisma focus is built primarily on intense presence and confidence. Think of figures who are known for being introverted, but incredibly penetrating in conversation. People like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, or Jack Keeler, the former IBM CEO.
And what's the effect this has on other people?
The effect is immense. It makes people feel completely heard, completely valued, and fundamentally important. When a focused, charismatic person listens to you, they absorb what you're saying so intensely that their entire nonverbal communication signals that your pearl of awareness matters, as Keeler put it.
How does that manifest physically?
Intense, unwavering eye contact, minimizing all distractions, and intentional stillness in the body. When you employ focus, you are creating this emotional space where the other person is the only thing that exists in that moment. and that is incredibly validating for them.
So when should a listener intentionally use this style?
It's indispensable in business. High-stakes negotiations, sharing sensitive information, or in any difficult situation where you need people to believe you are listening completely and that you value what they have to say. It's probably the most straightforward style to develop because it relies so heavily on mastering presence.
What are the risks? How can intense focus backfire?
Two main pitfalls. First, if you have the focus, but you lack perceived power or confidence, you can just seem overly eager, nervous, maybe even subservient. Second, if your focus is too intense but it lacks warmth, if you haven't done that goodwill work, it feels less like sincere interest and more like an interrogation.
A cold
A
analysis.
cold, calculated analysis. It has to be balanced with genuine positive intent.
Okay, next up. The charisma of vision. This is built on massive, unwavering belief.
This is pure power and presence, and it's all driven by inspiration. The key figures here are historical titans, like Martin Luther King Jr., or master salespeople like Steve Jobs, even revolutionary figures like Joan of Arc. Their effect on others is profound inspiration. They convince people to believe in a grand, often difficult future.
It's about selling the dream.
Completely. As a journalist once noted about Steve Jobs, he wasn't selling computers, he was selling salvation. He was selling a dramatically changed, better world. Visionary, charismatic leaders promise a world transformed by their conviction.
And since this is so conviction-based, is appearance less important?
Much less important. We assess visionary charisma primarily through behavior, through vocal tone, through the sheer intensity of the passion. You could express this kind of charisma in simple clothes, as long as your conviction projects absolute, unwavering faith in your idea.
The sources mention that this style, while incredibly inspiring, also carries the biggest risk.
It does. It's incredibly magnetic, but that magnet can pull people toward dangerous zealotry. Because it demands belief, it can suppress critical thinking and constructive dissent. If it's left unchecked or it's tied to a dangerous ideology, it can drive followers toward fanaticism.
Like with cult leaders.
Exactly, like Jim Jones.
Yeah.
The leader's power is derived from the follower's absolute faith in the vision, not the rational logic behind it.
Okay, let's move to the charisma of kindness. This one is all about warmth and approachability.
Right. Think of figures who just effortlessly connect with people's hearts. Mother Teresa, Princess Diana, the Dalai Lama. This style makes people feel unconditionally welcomed, loved, and accepted. They feel truly seen.
How do you even assess that? It sounds so internal.
You assess it almost exclusively through nonverbal warmth, especially around the eyes and the face, coupled with a really open, receptive body posture. To develop this, you have to avoid any hint of tension or coldness in your body language, which makes the meta and self-compassion practices we covered absolutely vital. You can't fake that quality of acceptance.
When is kindness charisma the best tool for the job?
Whenever you need to create a deep emotional bond, provide comfort, instill a sense of security, or deliver difficult news gently. It's also incredibly effective for disarming tension in a high-conflict situation. It's the great emotional lubricant.
And what are the dangers for the person using this style?
Because it relies so heavily on warmth, without necessarily projecting power, the individual can sometimes be seen as overly eager to please or even weak, and there's a real risk of burnout. That intense focus on others' emotional needs can lead to the charismatic person feeling immense guilt when they can't accommodate everyone.
Finally, the charisma of authority. This is all about power and respect.
This is the style that generates immediate respect and deference. Think of figures like Margaret Thatcher, Colin Powell, or even dominating athletes like Michael Jordan. It is designed to achieve obedience and compliance.
The sources list 4 clear indicators for how we assess this. Let's break them down.
The first and most important is body language, that physical display of confidence and control, taking up space. Second is appearance. We are hardwired to pay attention to status cues. There was that study in New York City.
The one with the suit.
Right. People were far more likely to follow a rule breaker across the street if that person was wearing an expensive suit than if they were dressed plainly. Appearance communicates immediate status. Third is your name, title, or post. And fourth is the reaction of others, how people defer to you, how they shrink their own space in your presence.
So when does a situation demand this style?
In business conditions that require immediate obedience, in crisis situations where quick action is non-negotiable, or anytime you need instant compliance.
And the risks. It sounds like it could be very isolating.
It absolutely can be. Authority charisma severely inhibits critical thinking and creative feedback from the team. If it's left unchecked, it can quickly lead to arrogance, hostile behavior, and a dictatorial style that isolates the leader completely. This is why the sources stress it must be mitigated with warmth and compassion. When a high-status person shows genuine warmth, it creates intense loyalty.
So now we have these four distinct styles. The ultimate lesson, though, seems to be that the most charismatic people, like an Oprah or a President Obama, they can switch between them fluidly.
Adaptability is the key to mastery. But that choice has to be intentional. It has to be strategic. You need to align your chosen style with three key factors: your personality, your goals, and the situation.
Let's start with personality. You can't just force yourself to be something you're not.
You can't. An introvert trying to force a high-energy, extroverted style will backfire disastrously. It just comes across as disingenuous. The internal discomfort will manifest as a shaky voice or forced laughter. For an introvert, leveraging focus or visionary charisma often aligns much more naturally. Authenticity has to come first.
Second, goal alignment.
You have to determine what reaction you want from the other person. If your goal is obedience and efficient execution, authority is the clear choice. If you want profound collaboration and creative change, visionary charisma is going to serve you much better. Define the outcome first, then select the style.
And finally, you have to align with the context.
The environment dictates the style. A corporate crisis demands authority or visionary. A quiet coaching moment demands kindness or focus. And you have to consider subtle cultural differences. Direct eye contact is charismatic focus in the US, but can be seen as aggressive in parts of Asia. The context is everything.
But there's a safety net.
There is. The ultimate emotional insurance policy, regardless of the style you choose, is the goodwill safety net. If you consistently maintain a genuine, deep-seated mental state of goodwill, if you sincerely wish the other person well, your facial expressions and body language will adapt automatically. They'll convey sincerity. And that ensures that even when you're using authority or focus, you're not perceived as cold or hostile. It gives you the best possible chance for a successful outcome.
We have covered so much ground today. We've gone from these philosophical foundations all the way to practical implementation. We detailed the internal framework for authentic warmth, using techniques from the radical, the mortality visualization, to the powerful meta practice.
We've covered how to access that optimal mental state.
And then we looked at how to reverse engineer our emotions through these strategic warm-ups, and finally mapped out the four distinct styles of charisma.
And all of that internal and behavioral work, according to the sources, that gets you about 80% of the way there. If you have the right internal state, that core of goodwill and self-compassion, and you have the correct fundamental behaviors, you are fundamentally charismatic.
But that last 20%.
That last crucial 20% is all about external execution. It's about mastering the critical first few seconds of any encounter. Now that we know the internal framework, we have to look at the external performance.
So what's coming up in our final part?
In our next deep dive, we are going to explore the high-stakes science of first impressions. We'll use the critical Harvard and Texas studies to show precisely why those moments matter so much. And then we're going to get really granular with the practical skills: how to shake hands correctly, the power of silence, how to structure your voice for maximum impact, and even the art of gracefully exiting a conversation.
Mastering those final skills seems to be what separates the merely competent from the truly influential. Thank you so much for tuning in to part 2 of this deep dive. If you found this analysis compelling and you want to finish building out your own charismatic blueprint, please make sure you subscribe to pod AIcast_official so you do not miss the conclusion.
It's going to be a great one.
That was the end of this part professionally, and we will see you in the next episode. Until then.